Hi, friends, and welcome back to the Nothing Pretty podcast. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Raquel. I'm your host of the podcast. And before we get into anything, I want to pause for a minute. Tell me how your week was. If you need to pause this, please feel free to pause this video and tell me, how was your week? Did that coworker get on your nerves? Did your mama get on your nerves? Your friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend? Pause for a moment and yap with me. Let me know how you're feeling. So my week was really busy. I have learned that it is really hard balancing my full-time job while building this podcast. I have had to get really intentional about waking up early to work out and do all the things I need to do before 6 a.m. to talk to the producer who is in Pakistan. It's a lot. It is a lot. So this week for me was really busy, but I'm going on vacation soon, so it's all good. Before we get into today's episode, I do want to let you know I am going to be getting in your business today. Today is one of those podcasts that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but girl, we are getting into some things. We are talking about the feeling of feeling behind in our lives. So before we dive in, I want you to slow down for just a second. If you're driving, I want you to feel yourself driving. If you're walking, I want you to feel yourself walking. I want you to be completely present in whatever it is that you're doing today. Even if you're sitting on the couch and you're watching this on your phone or your TV, feel yourself completely there. This is one of those podcasts where we have to get completely in our body. So I want you to feel your feet in your shoes on the ground. I want you to completely feel yourself inside of your body as we dive into today's topic. So when it comes to feeling behind, typically it's something we feel, but we don't say out loud. And when I say behind, I mean behind in things like career, behind in money, behind in relationship. It's one of those things I feel like we're constantly reminded of. You could go on LinkedIn and you feel like everybody is getting a new job. You can go on Instagram and everybody is moving to Paris, or everybody is starting a business, or everybody is moving into a new house. It does not matter. There are so many times where we are constantly reminded that we may be behind in life. And so today I want us to, number one, name that feeling, but also really be honest about how that feels to feel behind. When I initially thought about this episode topic, it made me uncomfortable. Even myself, I did not want to dive into what that feels like because it's deeply uncomfortable to feel behind. So me, being the person I am, I don't know, you still getting to know me, so let me tell you a little bit about me. Whenever I feel a way about something, I go into deep research mode. So I'm a researcher at heart. And so when I thought about feeling behind, I wanted to know, how does that make my brain feel when I'm feeling behind? It makes me feel very anxious. It makes me feel out of my body, which is why I wanted us to really start being inside of our bodies. Because when I feel behind, I start to feel like, oh, I need to do something. I need to get up. I need to get moving. And before I know it, I am completely outside of where I am and thinking about 10 years down the road. And so that made me look into what is this doing to my brain? And what I learned is that there is something called social comparison theory. It is from 1954. And it's a theory that tells us that about 10% of US citizens are comparing ourselves. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others. But what we don't realize is that it also does something to our brains. So our brains are always looking for safety. I want to say it's triggered by the amygdala. So when you feel behind, your brain literally wants to feel security and safety. So it's not just you. It's not just a picture. It's not just a video. When you see someone else that you perceive to be ahead, your brain literally seeks safety. So sometimes when you feel like people may be settling, or they may be like, okay, I've been in this job for 10 years. It really doesn't matter if I get another job. The reason why those people might feel like they're settling or they feel like they're surrendering to their present is because their brain sees being uncertain, sees being behind as a threat. So that's something I want you to keep in mind, is that this is not just you comparing yourself to Emily or you comparing yourself to Chad. No, your brain, when it goes on Instagram and it sees someone being ahead or getting a new house or moving to Paris or whatever it is, when your brain sees that, it completely sees a threat. And what we do, we get anxious about that threat and we get grateful for wherever we are. It's like, ooh, okay, I might not be moving to Paris, but thank you, Lord, for my job. I might not be doing this, but thank God for what I have. And sometimes when we feel behind, we don't realize how much it makes us want to settle. And this is not just me telling you what to do or telling you about yourself. This is also me. When I see myself or I perceive myself to be behind, I immediately feel like I either need to get another job, go back to school. Girl, you got your doctorate. What else you gonna get? But it makes me want to go back to school. It makes me want to take up a new career. My body literally feels under threat. And now I know it is my brain. It is my amygdala actually seeking safety. So I want to put this in context for you. When you feel behind and you feel that threat, you feel that heat kind of rise through your body, that uncertainty is your brain saying, I do not like how this feels. I want to slow down and I want to figure out a way to either surrender to where I am or be able to come up with a plan for my next. So I want to come today to talk about, number one, what being behind means, but also give you ways to stop the feeling of being behind in its tracks. I don't want it to overwhelm us. I want to be able to give you things that you can use when those thoughts come up. I want to pause for a second and talk about my own story. So when I talk about being uncertain or feeling behind, it makes me think about, I want to say it was maybe 2022 or 2023. I had moved home from Los Angeles. I moved back to my hometown of Columbus, Georgia. And I knew that I no longer wanted to practice medicine, like in its traditional sense. I didn't want to see patients. I was doing telemedicine at the time. So to be honest, I didn't even want to do the telemedicine thing. I was like talking to 20, 30 people a day, and it was about fertility. It was exhausting. It was mentally exhausting. And I knew I wanted to take my skills and be able to do something more with it. I wanted to lean more into being a digital creator. I wanted to lean more into social media and building a podcast and being a correspondent. I wanted to lean more into these things, but y'all, I had a good job. And when I say good job, I don't mean that it was perfect, but it paid very well. Okay, the job paid very well, which made me want to settle. In my body, I felt safe. A little bit about me. I'm gonna be vulnerable. This makes me feel very uncomfortable, but I have a fear of running out. So I was raised by a single mom, and she constantly was struggling to make ends meet. That's all I remember about my childhood is my mom struggling to make ends meet. So for me, when I thought about success and safety, I think about how much money am I making? And so as much as I knew it was time for me to pivot out of this job, my paycheck was making me say, girl, what are dreams really? Like, do you need another dream? Does it matter if you do something else, or should you just sit here comfortably and be grateful for the money you have? So a really big part of my life, especially when I became a doctor and I got this job, was me realizing that I had reached this dream, that I had made the amount of money that I wanted to make, more than I honestly ever thought that I could make. But there was this deep knowing inside of me that it was not enough, that I had to seek more, that I had to do more. And so I had this season of trying to figure out, okay, if I don't do telemedicine, if I don't do the traditional job of a doctor, what is my next? And I had no idea what my next was. I was spending so much time on LinkedIn just trying to find what is the job? Like, what is the thing that I could do? And I could not find it. I was finding jobs, and some of them had a little bit of this thing and a little bit of that thing, but none of them really had what I wanted to do. And so I made a decision to, number one, okay, I had to be smart now. I had to save a certain amount of money to quit. but I knew I had to quit and I had to step out on faith. And so I made the decision to take up consulting roles and contracting roles and fractional roles to be able to make up the difference in what I was making. But I had to make a really big jump to step out of that role, not just for the money, but also because I knew that God was requiring me to do more. And so in that season, I know everybody that was close to me can attest to this, but in that season where I didn't know my next step, emotionally, it was horrible. I mean, I feel like I've never had anxiety so bad in my life. I mean, I was waking up in the middle of the night. I couldn't focus throughout the day. I felt like I was constantly crying. Exercise didn't feel good. It was like my brain told me, like, girl, it was screaming at me, what are you doing? Why would you quit this safe job? Why would you leave this safe thing to do something that is uncertain? And so in that season where I knew I wanted to quit and I didn't have a next, there was no next thing. I was literally figuring it out as I went. And as I'm figuring it out, it's like people are getting their dream job. People are moving into their homes. People are getting pregnant. People are moving to Paris and doing all the things, which made me feel behind. And so as I was going through that, I had to, number one, get a therapist. And then number two, I had to start to define success for myself. So one thing my therapist gave me, and I want to give to you, is 5 principles. These are not slogans or affirmations, but these are 5 principles that can help you when you feel behind or you feel uncertain. Now, she gave me very therapeutic language that I am not going to say verbatim, but I'm going to tell you how I started to adapt it to my life. And these are the 5 anchors I want you to use if you start to feel behind in your life. And the first one is going to be, I am not behind, I'm in process. Now, I know we talked about this last week, but when it comes to this podcast, we are talking all about process. But I noticed that maybe I didn't tell you or define for you what process really means. So the technical definition of process is just steps to an end. So it's like going 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to 5. But I am not a person that went 1, 2, 3, 4. I went 1, 10, 9, 8, 2, 3, 10. Okay, so I realized for me, my process is not like everyone else's process. So for the purpose of Nothing Pretty, I want us to redefine what process really means. And for us, process is building quiet confidence by repetition. When you think about process as repetition, it takes your timeline off of someone else's. So as we are building this anchor, I'm not behind, I'm in process, I want you to remember that you are in your process. You're not in Jordan's process, you're not in Chris's process, you are in your own process. There is no timeline for your own. This is not the FAFSA. There's not one date that you have to do it. You can be in your own process because during that time, you are building confidence that's going to help you far beyond this season, far beyond this role, far beyond whatever your expected end may be. So our first anchor is remembering that you're not behind. You are in your process. The second anchor that I want you to remember when you feel behind, when you're comparing yourself to someone else, the second anchor is I'm further than I was. This one requires a bit of perspective because sometimes when we look back on our life, it's like, damn, 3 years ago, I had $20 in my savings, and then today I still got $20. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not talking about monetary or success or career. No, I am talking about being further than you were in your body, in your mind. So maybe 3 years ago, mentally, you could not adapt to your environment. Maybe 3 years ago, you were very depressed, or you really suffered with anxiety, or you didn't really have the confidence that you needed for this new season. So think about what it took to become the version of you that you are today. These things matter. Because sometimes in this period where we are developing, God is creating character traits inside of us that we need to go into our next. So when you think about further, I want you to take the thought of money and career off of it and think about the person that you have become over these past few years. If you know that you need to become someone else, then use this as your first day to start making new decisions. Your third anchor is nothing I'm learning is wasted. Now, this is one that I have learned and am still learning, because it's some jobs I'm still pissed off about. It's some things that I went through that I am still pissed about. I'm not going to cap. There are some things that still piss me off. But nothing you've been through is wasted. Even the job you hated. I mean, especially the job you hated. Because what I have learned is that in those seasons where we are having to persist through things that feel uncomfortable, they teach us things about boundaries. They teach us about patience. They teach us about discernment. When we are in situations that feel like a waste of our time, they are developing character traits in us that we literally could not learn any other way. So even if it's uncomfortable, I want you to remember that even if you perceive yourself to be behind, where you are right now matters. Our fourth anchor is going to be, I get to decide what success looks like. So remember, these anchors are for when that thought of I am behind comes into your mind. So when you hear I am behind, immediately you have to remind yourself, oh, that's their journey, that's not mine. This fourth anchor, I get to decide what success looks like. So we talked about that last week, where we really thought about, what does success mean to me? Remember, success for one person might be getting a new house. Success for someone else might be living in a luxury apartment. Success for someone else may be living in their mom's spare room because they get to save their money. It might be getting a job that pays $500,000. It might be not having a job and being an entrepreneur. You have to define success for yourself. And our last anchor is slow doesn't mean stuck. This one is incredibly important because when we feel behind, we feel like snails. We feel like we are going slower than everyone else. But you have to remember that some people are running towards a dead end. There is no rush. I promise you, there is no rush. There is something that you learn in process that, I mean, people can't steal the sauce. They cannot steal the juice. I remember when I was in school, I remember, like, I think it was physiology. It was one class, I can't remember. But I used to study for so long. It would take me so long to grasp a concept. I mean, hours at Starbucks trying to grasp a concept. And it would piss me off because everyone else would leave and go party and do whatever, and I would have to sit there to grasp it. But now let's fast forward to board exams. We had to take board exams for 8 hours. And everything that I learned in those hours sitting and studying at Starbucks is what helped me pass on the first try. I mean, those things I learned, it came back to me immediately because I did not rush the process. So that fifth anchor is important. There are things that you are learning when you are in this slow season that are going to help you years down the road. So remember, when you feel behind, remind yourself that in this season, slow does not mean stuck. We're going to take a break here. And when we come back, we're going to read a listener letter from Renee, who is hilarious, but is behind in her life and might just give some perspective to you. So we're back with our listener letter. And this listener letter is from Renee, y'all. Please send me your listener letters to np@raquelhammonds.com. That's N as in nothing, P as in pretty, @raquelhammonds.com. These have had me rolling. It was so hard to decide which ones to choose, but let's hear from our girl, Renee. She said, "Hi, Dr. Raquel. I'm 26 and I'm writing this from my childhood bedroom, which I swore I would never be in again. But here we are. My high school trophies are staring at me like, so this is what you did with your potential? I feel behind, girl, like aggressively behind. Everyone I know is either engaged, pregnant, promoted, moving to New York, starting a business, or doing Pilates at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday like their life is together. I thought by now I'll be settled, or at least confident. or at minimum, not Googling, is it normal to feel lost at 26? I'm doing things. I'm working, I'm paying bills, I'm going to therapy, I drink water. But it still feels like everyone else got a secret memo about adulthood that I missed because I was disassociating in college. The worst part is I can't tell if I'm actually behind or just comparing my behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. And I don't know how to stop spiraling without gaslighting myself into fake positivity. So I guess my question is, what do you tell yourself when you feel like you're running late to your own life? Respectfully, Renee. First of all, you being at home is so tea because moving home is, to me, a life hack that people really sleep on. Like, be grateful for when you can go home. And I know this is not helpful when you feel behind, but truly, if you have parents or if you even have relatives that will let you take a break from adulthood and just move home for a little bit, it is a deep sigh. It's a deep sigh. So I just want to start there. Like, don't feel like being at home puts you behind. If anything, it's giving you space not to worry about bills and all the responsibilities that come with adulting. But to your question about feeling behind to your own life, I want to, again, take you back to these anchors. And I want you to learn, how can I interrupt these thoughts? So remember, when it came to these anchors, the first thing is you have to decide what success looks like for you. And the reason why I brought up you being at home is because the fact that you're at home, you don't have anything looming over your head that's forcing you to stay in a job you don't like. So if you know, like, okay, I'm at this place, I don't feel happy, I want to begin again, I want to do a new thing, take this time when you're home and maybe extend it. Maybe rather than say I'm in my childhood bedroom for 6 months, maybe you say, hey, mom, hey, dad, hey, auntie, can I actually stay here for a year or 2 years while I stack up my savings to pursue my dream of being doing color in movies in LA. I'm just thinking of something real cool. Or being able to do scoring for movies in LA, or being a costume designer, or being a writer, or being a producer or a videographer. Like, use the time that you're at home to define success for yourself. It is important that we use these anchors to interrupt the thought. Every single week when we are talking about anchors and breaking habits, these are ways to break patterns. These are anchors that can stop your thought like, oh, I'm not behind. This is my process. This is my season of success. So I want you to remember to define success for yourself. And then the last thing I want you to do is to, again, define process. While you're at home, I want you to decide, what is the thing that I wanted to do when I was 8? When I was a little girl, what did I want to do? What was the thing that I felt like I couldn't do anymore because now I'm 26? What was the thing that you wanted to do? And now that you're home and you don't have the responsibility of bills, think about what that is and commit to the process. Remember, process for us is repetition. It's building confidence. So reach out to someone on LinkedIn, reach out to someone on Instagram and say, hey, I want to be a videographer. Can I come and intern and learn from you? I want to be a writer. Can I come to your writer's camp? I want to do coloring for movies. Can I come and just sit in on your set? Really take this time, especially being home, to take advantage of not having bills and responsibility and follow that dream that you had in your heart long ago. Okay, so this is the part of the episode where we get intentional. This segment is called Your Next Brave Thing. And I love going into Your Next Brave Thing after our listener letters because it helps us to also apply the things that they have to learn in their lives. So when it comes to your next brave thing, there are 2 things that I ask of you. Number 1, you have to do it in the next 24 hours. Number 2, you have to do it for the next 7 days. So when it comes to our next brave thing, we have to make an immediate decision to what we're going to do. And this week, your next brave thing is going to be choosing one of our anchors and committing to doing it in the next 24 hours. So I'm gonna give you an example. Let's just say you go on Instagram and you see your homegirl from high school and she just got a house. immediately your brain goes to, damn, I'm in my mama bedroom. I'm behind in my life. Like, as soon as your mind gets negative and says that I'm behind, immediately you have to interrupt it with an anchor. As a reminder, our 5 anchors is I'm not behind, I'm in process, I'm further than I was, nothing I'm learning is wasted, I get to decide what success looks like, and slow doesn't mean stuck. So in the next 24 hours, your next brave thing is choosing one of those anchors, immediately interrupting those negative thoughts, and committing to it for the next 7 days. And before we end, let's close like we always do. This last segment is called What We're Drinking to Cope. And this week, I am drinking LaCroix in my wine glass because sometimes your week be hard. And maybe you don't need a drink. Maybe you just need a little sparkling water to get you through the night, to get you to the next day. But this week, I really want us to toast to our own timeline. This week, we are toasting to not being behind, but being in process. Here's to you, girl. Cheers. Thank y'all so much for coming to kick it with me today. This was probably one of my favorite episodes. It means so much that you are trusting me with your words. Again, if you want to yap with me, if you want to tell me what's going on in your life, you can send an email to mp, N as in nothing, P as in pretty, at raquelhammonds.com. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, see y'all soon.